It was supposed to be a calm Tuesday night town hall in Phoenix. Barack Obama sat under the bright lights, jacket open, tie slightly loose, speaking about democracy. The mood shifted when the moderator suddenly announced, "We've just been informed that President Trump is calling in." Gasps filled the room. No one expected a sitting president to crash his predecessor's live event. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled. The moderator froze. Obama stayed composed, leaning back with an almost amused look. "Put him through," he said slowly in that familiar voice people hadn't heard in years. Moments later, Trump's face appeared on the screen, his voice booming through the speakers. "Barack, I had to call in. What I'm watching is a disgrace. Under your leadership, jobs disappeared. Under me, we built the best economy the world has ever seen. Everybody knows it." The crowd shifted nervously, murmurs rippling. This wasn't just a call, it was a live clash of two eras. Obama paused, letting silence hang, then calmly told the audience, "Well, looks like we've got company tonight." Laughter broke out, easing the tension for just a moment, but everyone sensed what was coming. An unscripted showdown. Trump pressed harder. "People remember how bad it was before me. Manufacturing was collapsing, China was winning. I turn it around, the numbers prove it. Without me, this country would be in ruins. You want to sit here acting like you did something good? You didn't, people know it. Barack, they know." His words weren't refined, but they were loud, forceful, and carried the weight of a man still in office, dominating every headline and broadcast. The audience wasn't watching the screen anymore, their eyes were fixed on Obama. Everyone wondered what he'd do. Would he take the bait, fire back in anger, or just ignore it? Instead, he leaned forward, hands clasped, and looked straight into the camera. His voice was calm, steady, unhurried. "Mr. President," he began, pausing just long enough. "I think the American people care less about who yells the loudest and more about who tells them the truth." The crowd burst into applause. The moderator shifted uneasily, relieved yet nervous. The confrontation was no longer a possibility, it was unfolding live. Trump cut back in, his voice rising, but the atmosphere had changed. Obama's poise wasn't only about his words, it was about presence. One man shouted, the other remained unshaken. Viewers could feel the contrast instantly. In that moment, the room belonged to Obama, but this was only the beginning. The night was building toward a single line that would be remembered for years. Meanwhile, inside the East Wing, the mood was tense. Staff moved carefully, avoiding eye contact when the First Lady's office door closed with a sharp thud. Even the Secret Service glanced over. Melania sat at her desk, a glass of water untouched, a leaked DNA report gripped tightly in front of her. Her hands trembled not from fear, but from fury. She had mastered silence for years, but this was different. This was about Barron. "I will not let them destroy my son," she snapped, her accent slicing through the room. "Do you understand? I don't care what it takes." Her advisors shifted nervously. One strategist, Raymond Holt, tried to stay calm. "First Lady, we can manage this. Rumors pass. What matters is controlling the narrative before." "Before what?" She cut in, slamming her hand on the desk. Papers shook. "Before every newspaper prints lies about my family. Before my son becomes a target." Her voice cracked, torn between rage and fear. The room fell silent. Even Holt, who had weathered decades of scandals, had no answer. This wasn't just politics anymore. It was personal, about blood, identity, and a mother's resolve. Melania shoved her chair back so hard it rattled against the wall, then began pacing, her heels striking the marble like a drumbeat of anger. "I gave everything for this role," she muttered, more to herself than to her staff. "I protected, I stayed silent, I smiled when I wanted to scream, and this is how they repay me." One aide, Charlotte Winslow, tried to speak. "Ma'am, we don't know who leaked it yet, but if we can trace it, find them," Melania snapped, spinning on her heels. "I don't care how, I don't care what it takes. I want to know who betrayed me." Her voice was sharp, cold, final. The room froze. Charlotte scribbled a note, her hand trembling, before slipping out to start making calls that left only Raymond Holt. He knew better than to push too hard, but advising her was his job. He leaned forward carefully. "We have options. We can call the report fake, blame political enemies, or stay quiet and let it fade." Melania laughed bitterly. "Fade? Nothing fades here. Everything becomes permanent. They will use this to destroy him and to destroy me." For a moment, she looked almost fragile, eyes glassy, hands gripping the back of her chair. But then, just as quickly, she straightened. The mask returned. "Prepare statements," she ordered, "but not a word leaves this office until I approve it." Holt nodded, but he knew the truth. In Washington, secrecy never lasts. Someone somewhere already had copies of the report. That night, staff whispered about hearing glass shatter in the residence, maybe a vase, maybe more. No one dared ask. But word spread fast. Aides quietly told colleagues, "She's furious. I've never seen her like this. If anyone thinks she sit quietly, they're wrong." Those whispers became part of the story itself. Proof the leak had cut deeper than anyone imagined. By the next morning, the fallout was already in motion. A motorcade slipped discreetly through downtown DC, not for ceremony, but for a private meeting inside a law office. Around the polished table sat lawyers, crisis managers, and strategists. At the center was the folder, its contents treated like a live grenade. "We have two options," one lawyer said flatly. "Discredit or distract. Call it a smear campaign against the First Lady or bury it beneath something bigger. Washington moves on fast if you give it a new story." Holt rubbed his temple. He knew that game all too well. Distractions could work, but timing was everything. Move too soon and it would look staged. Wait too long and the leak could spread like wildfire. Hanging over it all was Melania, furious, wounded, and demanding nothing short of complete erasure. At the White House, Charlotte Winslow returned with bad news. After hours of calls, she had traced whispers to the medical world, maybe even a staffer with access to private files. But every lead ended the same. Someone wanted this out, and they had covered their tracks well. In the residence, Melania paced with her phone pressed to her ear as Holt briefed her from the downtown meeting. "They're saying we can bury it," he told her carefully, "but it will take time and resources. Time we don't have," she snapped. "Half the city already knows. If Jasmine Crockett gets hold of it." She stopped short, unwilling to finish the thought. The idea of the outspoken Congresswoman armed with such a weapon made her chest tighten. Charlotte slipped in, clutching a notepad. "Ma'am," chatter started online. "Small accounts, nothing big yet, but people are asking questions." Melania's face turned to stone. "Shut it down." "How?" Charlotte asked softly. "Call platforms. Call editors. Threats, favors, I don't care." No one repeats this. The room went still. Even in Washington, where power plays were currency, silencing an entire city was impossible. That evening, Holt reconvened the crisis team. They pitched desperate tactics, fake leaks to confuse reporters, quiet bribes, pressure on tech companies to flag posts. Each idea carried risks. One advisor leaned forward. "The danger isn't the report itself, it's her reaction. If people see how badly she wants this buried, they'll assume the worst. She needs to look calm, above it all. Not angry, not desperate." Holt exhaled. Easier said than done. Meanwhile, word of Melania's rage spread faster than the DNA rumor itself. Staff whispered, journalists listened. The phrase "explosive outburst" began circulating in private texts. In Dallas, reporter Lyle Morgan sat at his desk, staring at a scan of the alleged DNA report from a trusted source. He wasn't the only one who had it, but he was willing to verify it. He called a congressional staffer. "Have you heard what's happening in the East Wing?" "She's panicking," came the reply. "If you've got something, run it." Morgan leaned back, torn between caution and ambition. If he published, the story would erupt nationwide. If he hesitated, someone else would beat him. Not far away, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was already watching closely. Sifting through forwarded emails, she narrowed her eyes. "This isn't just about a family matter," she said evenly. "This is about transparency." Jasmine Crockett wasn't known for subtlety. She built her career on saying what others were too afraid to, and when the news of Barron's DNA leak landed on her desk, she didn't flinch, she leaned in. Her staff huddled in a cramped conference room in Dallas. Laptops glowed, coffee cups stacked, and a whiteboard full of arrows and names looked like a conspiracy map. Jasmine stood at the front, hands on her hips, voice firm. "Tell me what we actually know." "No fluff." Marcus Bellamy, her sharp-eyed researcher, clicked the projector. The document first appeared in a private thread among medical staff. Someone forwarded it, we don't know who, but it spread fast. At least 3 reporters have copies. None have gone public. "Why not?" Jasmine pressed. "They're scared," Marcus said. "If they publish, Melania's legal team crushed them." "Easier to sit on it," Jasmine smirked. "Scared? That's not journalism. That's babysitting power." Nervous chuckles broke the tension. Another aide, Lena Ortiz, added, "We've heard Melania's been shouting at staff, threatening people." Some call it her worst meltdown since stepping into the White House. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Volatile isn't a headline, it's a symptom. If she's cracking like that, this leak cuts deeper than they'll admit. And if it's that personal, they'll do anything to bury it. Which means it's our responsibility to make sure it doesn't stay buried. She grabbed her phone, dialing a journalist she trusted. He answered cautiously. "Congresswoman, I heard you've been sniffing around the DNA story." "You heard right." "What do you know off the record?" A pause. "I've seen the document, but publishing it? Too risky. The First Lady's people are circling. They'll shred anyone who touches it, then let them come for me." Jasmine shot back, "I don't scare easy." She hung up, turning to her team with fire in her eyes. "Here's the line," she said. "We don't touch Barron, that's off limits. This isn't about him, it's about her. The secrecy, the cover-up, the lengths they'll go to protect an image while silencing everyone else." Marcus nodded. "So a public statement, not just a statement," Jasmine replied, her voice charged. "We set the frame, we show people what happens when leaders hide behind walls of power. We remind them the truth doesn't belong to politicians, it belongs to the people." That night, she drafted remarks short, sharp, impossible to ignore. By morning, she was ready. Standing outside her Dallas office, she prepared to ignite a storm. Microphones crowded around her as Jasmine Crockett delivered her words with calm precision. "Secrecy is the currency of the powerful," she began. "When documents surface, when people speak out, that isn't chaos, it's democracy at work. And when leaders scramble to bury the truth, the real question is, what are they so afraid of us knowing?" She never mentioned Barron, never said Melania's name, but the target was unmistakable. A reporter called out, "Congresswoman Crockett, are you saying the First Lady is covering something up?" Jasmine's gaze fixed on him. "I'm saying this if the truth makes someone uncomfortable. That's their problem, not the people's." Within hours, the clip went viral. Hashtags tied to secrecy and transparency trended across Twitter. Cable news pundits replayed her words on loop, arguing whether she'd gone too far or not far enough. In the East Wing, panic set in. Holt rushed into an emergency meeting, his face pale as he showed Melania the clip. "She's careful, but she's aiming straight at us. She's framing this as a moral fight." Melania's jaw tightened. "Then we fight back harder." But Jasmine wasn't finished. She was preparing to drop evidence that would make silence impossible. The next morning, the air in the Rayburn House office building felt electric. Cameras lined the halls, reporters jostled for space, staff whispered with urgency. Jasmine Crockett was scheduled to testify at a subcommittee hearing, but everyone knew this wasn't routine. This was about to be a showdown. She entered the chamber with calm strides, papers tucked neatly in hand. No theatrics, just focus. Every eye followed her. Across town, Melania and Holt sat glued to a White House monitor. Holt muttered under His breath, sweat beating on his temple. If she goes straight for it, we're in trouble. Melania sat rigid, arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen. She'd been reassured Jasmine wouldn't name Barron. That was the red line, but it didn't matter. She didn't have to. The hearing began with dry formalities until Jasmine leaned into the microphone. America doesn't just run on laws, she said steadily, it runs on trust. And when those in power treat truth as optional, that trust dies a little every day. The room stilled, members shifted in their seats. Reporters leaned forward, pens ready, Jasmine's voice sharpened. We've seen leaders demand loyalty, demand silence, demand we look away when the truth becomes inconvenient, but democracy doesn't survive when secrecy becomes the default. The American people deserve better, a congressman cut in, trying to tether her back. Congresswoman, today's hearing is on transparency in government contracts. She didn't flinch. Exactly. Transparency is the issue. Whether it's contracts, classified documents, or private reports hidden to shield political families, the pattern is the same. Cover it up, silence dissent, hope no one asks questions. The chamber buzzed with murmurs. Everyone knew where she was pointing. Without ever saying it, she had put the White House under the spotlight. Cameras zoomed closer as she lifted a sheet of paper, not the DNA report itself, but something damning enough. Jasmine held up a sheet of paper, tapping it for emphasis. Within 48 hours of this report surfacing, calls were made to editors, platforms were pressured, and media outlets leaned on to silence discussion. If this document was meaningless, if it was fake, why scramble so hard to bury it? Gasps rippled through the room. It was no longer about Barron, it was about power and control. A reporter shouted from the back, breaking decorum. Congresswoman, are you accusing the First Lady of suppressing information? Jasmine didn't miss a beat. I'm saying this, the truth doesn't need bodyguards. If it can stand on its own, let the people see it. Inside the White House viewing room, Melania's fists clenched. She's exploiting this, she hissed. Holt tried to steady her. She's framing it as transparency, not Barron. If we attack, we look guilty, and if we stay silent, Melania snapped, we look weak. Back in the chamber, Jasmine delivered her closing with quiet force. Families should be off limits, but when secrecy becomes a shield for power, when anger replaces accountability, we all lose. This isn't about one household. It's about every household that deserves honesty from its leaders. The room erupted, reporters firing questions, committee members whispering fiercely. By the time Jasmine collected her papers and walked out with calm precision, her words were already ricocheting through the airwaves like thunder after a storm. She hadn't needed the DNA report itself. Melania's reaction was now the story. That evening, the phrase "the truth doesn't need bodyguards" scrolled across TV screens nationwide. MSNBC, CNN, YouTube, TikTok, it was everywhere. At the National Press Club, reporters traded notes, stunned at how quickly the narrative had shifted. Many admitted they hadn't planned to touch the DNA leak, it was too sensitive. But Jasmine had reframed it, not about Barron, but about Melania's desperation. That made it safer to cover. Across the country, the testimony played in diners and living rooms. In Indianapolis, a woman watching from her booth shook her head. She's right, if it's nothing, why is the First Lady losing her mind? A man in uniform muttered, because they're always hiding something. That same conversation echoed from kitchens to offices, perception snowballing faster than fact. Online, the storm only grew. Twitter lit up with hashtag truth or cover up and hashtag Crockett calls it out. TikTok creators spliced Jasmine's clip with old Trump interviews, suggesting contradictions. Instagram memes mocked Melania's rumored meltdown with doctored images of shattered vases and broken glass. Inside the White House, the mood was bleak. Holt and Charlotte huddled with exhausted staffers in the communications office. Ties loosened, eyes red, screens glowing. Every attempt to contain the story only seemed to make it grow. Holt rubbed his forehead, knowing the battle was slipping out of their control. Melania stared at the television as Jasmine's clip played again. She never even mentioned Barron, she muttered, and still she turned it into a storm. She frames herself as the people's voice, while we look like we're hiding, Charlotte sighed. We can't keep denying without details. People are asking if it's fake. Why not just release the truth? Melania stepped into the room, silent at first. Everyone straightened. She pointed at the screen. This woman, Crockett, she thinks she can use me. She thinks I am weak. Her tone sharpened. She does not know me. In Dallas, Jasmine's office was buzzing. Her phone lit with calls from CNN, MSNBC, even Good Morning America. Marcus grinned as he read from his tablet. Congresswoman, you're trending nationwide. Independence just jumped 7 points overnight. People are calling you the voice of transparency. Jasmine leaned back, thoughtful. That's good, but we keep it about principle, not gossip. The second this becomes about Barron, we lose the high ground. Lena nodded. So do we push another statement? A TV hit. Not yet, Jasmine said, tapping her pen. Let them chase me. The more they ask, the more control we have. But when I speak again, it has to land like a hammer across America. The debate spilled into daily life. Parents worried about their own kids being dragged into politics. Workers complained about leaders twisting the truth. What united them was the feeling Jasmine had struck a nerve. Secrecy breeds mistrust inside the White House. Holt finally spoke bluntly. First Lady, if we attack her, we prove her point. If we stay silent, she owns the narrative. We need a third path. Melania's eyes narrowed. Then create one, but the silence itself was already becoming a headline. Networks ran tickers asking why she hadn't responded. Opinion pieces questioned her state of mind. For a woman who had built her image on composure, every hour of quiet looked like weakness. That morning, her team gathered in the East Wing. Heavy curtains blocked the light. Holt stood with notes spread out, Charlotte with a pile of press clippings. Melania entered last, her pale suit immaculate, her face unreadable. Tell me what we do, she said. Holt cleared his throat. We strike back, but carefully. Position you as a mother first, First Lady second. Paint Crockett as reckless, willing to drag families into politics for her own gain. If we make this about decency, we win. Charlotte slid a draft across the table, short, controlled. No mention of Crockett's name, just a reminder children should be off limits. Melania glanced at the page, then set it aside. Not enough, with respect, Holt cautioned. If we go harder, it could backfire. Crockett has the sympathy right now. If we attack, it looks like we're hiding something. Melania leaned forward, her voice low and cold. I am not hiding, I am protecting. There is a difference. She makes me look desperate. I will show her I am strong. For a long moment, the room was silent. Holt knew the First Lady rarely contradicted advice so openly. When she did, there was no changing her mind. That afternoon, a small camera crew quietly set up inside the White House. This wasn't a holiday photo op or a school visit. It was for Melania herself, seated near a window, sunlight grazing her face. She spoke directly to the camera. I have always believed children must be off limits, she said, her accent clipped and precise. What I see now is shameful people in positions of power spreading lies to attack my family. My son deserves privacy, not spectacle. I will never stop protecting him. The video ran under 2 minutes, but it hit hard. Networks replayed it. On loop, supporters praised her as a mother defending her child. Critics noted she hadn't addressed the allegations, only scolded those asking questions. In Dallas, Jasmine's staff watched together. Marcus was first to break the silence. She's doubling down on the family angle. Smart-tit makes her untouchable to some. Jasmine folded her arms. Untouchable only until the truth slips again. She's playing sympathy, but sympathy won't erase the cover-up. That's where we stay. By morning, Melania's pushback expanded. Friendly outlets ran op-eds calling Crockett heartless. Conservative radio hammered Jasmine as a woman obsessed with tearing families apart. Cameras followed Melania to a children's hospital in Baltimore, capturing warm smiles with patients and hugs with parents. Every photo tied back to her beat. Best initiative, reinforcing the image of a mother unfairly attacked. But not everyone was convinced. In Cleveland, activists held signs reading truth over image and we deserve transparency. A teacher told a local reporter, "I respect any mother, protecting her child. But this isn't about a kid, it's about power." If they're hiding this, what else are they hiding? Inside the West Wing, Melania's advisors watched reactions carefully. Her base had stabilized, headlines grew more sympathetic. Some staffers called it a victory. Holt wasn't so sure. "We may have bought time," he told Charlotte quietly. But Crockett hasn't fired her next shot. And when she does, it'll be bigger. In Dallas, Jasmine was already preparing. That strike, her aides urged her to respond quickly, but she shook her head. No, let her ride this wave. The higher she climbs on sympathy, the harder it hits when we drop receipts. We're not fighting over feelings, we're fighting for truth. For days, Jasmine had let Melania soak in the spotlight, posing with children, smiling for cameras, issuing short, careful statements. But sympathy couldn't hold forever. When her aides confirmed multiple journalists now had proof of coordinated cover-up efforts, Jasmine knew the waiting game was over. Her office buzzed with tension that morning. Outside, reporters camped on the sidewalk. Inside, staff circled a table stacked with documents, emails, and call logs. The air was heavy. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "We've got confirmation." Marcus slid a file across the table. At least 3 editors say they were pressured by the First Lady's team to bury the story. Some even got calls from federal contacts. "We've got names, times, transcripts. This is bigger than we thought." Jasmine scanned the documents, her face unreadable. "They didn't just protect their image," she said slowly. "They used government channels to intimidate the press. That's not family, it's abuse of power." Lena, cautious as always. "Lean forward, if you drop this, it's war. They'll come at you harder than ever." Jasmine looked up. "I steady." "Good, let them." That afternoon, she stepped to the podium in the House press briefing room. The place was packed wall to wall, cameras snapping before she spoke. She adjusted the microphone, letting silence stretch until the room stilled. "I want to be clear," she began, her tone calm but cutting. "This is not about a child. This is not gossip. This is about power and what happens when power is misused to silence the truth." She lifted a stack of call logs. In the last 72 hours, respected editors were pressured not to publish a story. Not by parents, not by the public, but by individuals tied directly to the First Lady's office. Some of these calls carried threats: access revoked, funding questioned, reputations destroyed if they didn't comply. The press gallery erupted, whispers, furious scribbling, cameras flashing. Jasmine held steady. This isn't about one household. It's about every household in America. If those in power can intimidate journalists, what chance do citizens have when they speak up? That isn't democracy, it's control. A reporter shouted. "Congresswoman Crockett, are you accusing the First Lady of ordering these calls?" Jasmine didn't hesitate. "I'm saying the calls came from people under her authority. Whether she picked up the phone herself or gave the order behind closed doors, the result is the same suppression of truth." The room fell silent. It was the quote that would play across every network by nightfall. At the White House, Holt slammed his fist on the table. "She's reckless. She just accused the First Lady of abusing her office." Melania sat rigid, jaw tight, nails digging into the armrest. "Then we sue her. Defamation." Holt froze. "That would make it worse. The moment we sue, the documents become evidence." "She wants us to overreact," Charlotte spoke softly. "The optics of suing a congresswoman for demanding transparency could destroy us." Melania's face flushed, but she stayed silent. Back in the press room, Jasmine leaned into the microphone one last time, lowering her voice so each word landed like a strike. "Every parent wants to protect their child. I respect that. But no parent, no spouse, No official has the right to weaponize silence to protect their image while punishing the public for asking questions. We deserve leaders who answer, not leaders who hide. The room exploded, reporters shouting questions as she stepped away, not once looking back. Her words had been delivered like steel against steel, sharp, loud, impossible to ignore. That night, anchors dissected every sentence. Pundits argued, was she fearless or reckless, truth teller or opportunist? Yet even critics admitted one thing: Jasmine had forced the First Lady into a corner. At a bar in Phoenix, a young couple watched the replay on a mounted TV. The man shook his head. If she's lying, why does she sound so damn convincing? His partner sipped her drink slowly. I still locked on the screen. Maybe because she isn't, the woman in Phoenix answered, sipping her drink. Conversations like that echoed across the country into the early hours. Jasmine's gamble had worked, at least for now. She had yanked the spotlight off Melania's sympathy campaign and placed it squarely on questions of power. But the deeper Jasmine pushed, the more dangerous the game became. If Melania struck back, the fight could escalate beyond words. Washington thrives on scandal, but this one had its own gravity. By the time Jasmine's press conference replayed across every network, lawmakers were already choosing sides. Some whispered their support in private, calling her courageous. Others warned she'd gone too far, pointing a finger at the First Lady was a line no one had dared to cross. The next morning, the atmosphere on Capitol Hill was electric. Reporters swarmed the steps of Congress, microphones thrust at any lawmaker willing to comment. Most dodged, some stumbled, but Senator Howard Briggs of Ohio went on record. Congresswoman Crockett is asking the right questions. The American people deserve transparency even from the highest offices, especially from them. His quote ran on a loop all day, fueling headlines. Division grows in Congress over Crockett's claims. Inside committee rooms, aides debated in hushed voices whether a formal inquiry was possible. Officially, nothing had been filed. Unofficially, staffers were already digging, tracking calls, tracing communications, asking if taxpayer resources had been used to shield the First Lady. At the White House, the fallout was just as sharp. Holt briefed Melania in the residence. His tone clipped. We're boxed in. Congress is sniffing around. Journalists are quoting Crockett word for word. The harder we push, the guiltier we look. Melania paced, heels striking the floor like a clock. So we do nothing. Let her insult me, humiliate my family. Charlotte spoke softly from the corner. If we overplay it, we confirm her story. The safest option may be patience. Let the noise burn out. Melania stopped, eyes blazing. Patience is weakness. If I look weak, I lose. I will not lose. Cable news panels buzzed with arguments. Some called Jasmine reckless, gambling her career for the spotlight. Others praised her boldness, comparing her to truth tellers of past eras. The divide cut across parties, demographics, even families. In Detroit, factory workers crowded a breakroom TV. I don't care about the drama, Curtis said, shaking his head. But if the First Lady leaned on the press, that's dirty. That's not leadership, his co-worker Jeanette replied. I don't trust politicians, but that Crockett woman, she's got guts. Feels like she's talking for regular people. Pollsters confirmed the split. Melania's base rallied to her side, but independents leaned heavily toward Jasmine's call for transparency. For once, the usual partisan lines weren't holding. In the Senate dining hall, whispers spread. If Melania's office had misused resources, it could trigger a larger investigation. Others brushed it off as theater. But no one could ignore that Jasmine had transformed a private family matter into a public test of accountability. That night, Jasmine sat across from Anderson Cooper on 360. Calm and steady, she repeated her message. This isn't about me. It isn't about her. It's about whether Americans have the right to know when power is used to silence truth. If we let that slide, we've already surrendered our democracy, Cooper pressed her. Do you worry you crossed the line by naming the First Lady's office directly? Jasmine smiled faintly. The only line I crossed is the one between silence and courage. Clips of that exchange hit TikTok within minutes, drawing millions of views overnight. A new hashtag trended by morning, hashtag #silence or courage trended worldwide as Melania's team argued deep into the night. Holt, worn down from pacing, finally said it bluntly, she's winning the narrative. If we don't pivot, she defines us forever. Melania sat rigid, hands clasped. When she spoke, her voice was icy. Then tomorrow, I speak again, not in a video. Not scripted, live. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the risk-alive appearance could take back control or end in disaster. By morning, the country buzzed. The First Lady would address the controversy live, unedited. Every network cleared airtime, every pundit speculated, and millions tuned in. At noon sharp, Melania strode into the White House press room, upright, composed, striking in a simple suit. She stepped to the podium and stared directly into the cameras. I have heard the accusations, the lies, the rumors, she began, accent crisp, tone steady. I am a mother before I am a first lady. I will not allow my family to be used as a weapon in political games. Reporters scribbled furiously as her voice rose. Shame on those who twist truth for ambition. Shame on those who think destroying families is the way to win. America deserves better. The statement was emotional, powerful but fragile. She denied nothing, offered no evidence, just outrage, wrapped in motherhood and morality. When the questions came, she turned and walked off, heels echoing on marble. Supporters praised her strength. Critics called it evasion, but no one could deny the spectacle had seized the nation's attention. That evening, Jasmine countered on The Rachel Maddow Show. Calm but sharp, she wielded her words like a scalpel. I respect motherhood, I respect families. But this isn't about a son. This is about the abuse of influence. I showed call logs, transcripts, pressure campaigns. That's not rumor, that's evidence. And when leaders silence the press, it's not a family matter, it's a democracy matter. Maddow pressed her. Do you believe the First Lady lied? Today, Jasmine didn't hesitate. I believe she chose silence over truth. And history shows us silence protects no one. Not even the powerful. Clips of the exchange exploded online. Hashtag split the battlefield. Hashtag protect Barron trended alongside hashtag silence or courage. Dinner tables, radio shows, even Sunday sermons, filled with debate. For many, the DNA leak itself no longer mattered. The fight had become about who had the courage to speak and who hid behind walls. In Springfield, Missouri, a retired teacher summed it up to his local paper. I don't care who you vote for. This isn't red or blue. This is about truth. If Crockett's right, then power's being abused.